So prime rib is probably my father's favorite meal, and yesterday was his birthday. Tonight we're making a prime rib for his birthday meal, and if you'll recall, last year we did the same thing, but this year is going to be even better. There's one big difference between the prime rib we're cooking today and the prime rib we did a year ago. Between last year and this year, this right here cost over twice as much as it did a year ago. There's 8 adults and a few kids eating. I'm not gonna cook this entire thing. This is way more than we need. I'm gonna cut off about this much of a chunk to save and put in the freezer, and then the rest we're gonna eat tonight. I'm gonna cut off a chunk about this big, and that way me and Hannah will have some steaks to eat on. We'll probably vacuum seal these and freeze them, but these are gonna make for some great steaks. That's pretty good, especially for choice. There's a little bit of marbling in that. I'm pretty happy with it. All right, so we've got this ready. Let's set it to the side, and we're gonna make our rub. There's 2 things I love when I'm having beef. I love rosemary and I love garlic. It goes with it so well. For this prime rib, that's what we're doing. We did this last year. We're gonna take a bunch of rosemary and we're gonna make some rosemary salt. We've got about 3 full sprigs here. The best part about this is that your hands smell like rosemary all day long. Now we're gonna take some salt, about that much. We're gonna take equal parts pepper. I'm just gonna do the whole peppercorns. And garlic. I'm gonna use a whole bowl of garlic. I've seen this online, I've never tried it, but it's supposed to remove it. So put this in here, just in any kind of shaker. Would you look at that? That worked pretty good. There's no skin on it. Let's give it another good shake. That might be my new go-to when I'm doing a bunch of garlic at once. All right, now that we've got that, let's get the lid on it. Let's get it plugged in. We're gonna blitz this. Now that we've got our seasoning ready, we're gonna hit this with some olive oil and rub it in so that this will help the seasoning stick to it. Just gonna act as a binder. All right, let's take all this rosemary salt and just rub it in everywhere. You can do this several hours if you want to before you cook. Just letting it sit there longer is gonna be even better. Unfortunately, I don't have much time before I have to get it in the oven. Because this thing's gonna take 3 to 4 hours to cook. It sort of depends on how big it is. We're cooking this really low. We're gonna be cooking it at about 250 to 275. You can do this on the smoker if you want to. I'm just using the oven today, but we're gonna cook it really low, and then once it's done, we're gonna pull it out, let it rest for about 30 minutes, and then we're gonna sear it really hot. You can do that one of 2 ways. You can either put it in the oven at the hottest temperature or on broil, or you can do it how we're gonna do it, which is over the big green egg, getting it over those open flames as hot as it'll go. I mean, you can get that to about 1,000 degrees. So we're gonna get a really good sear on this that way. All right, I've got a baking sheet and I've got a cooling rack. I'm gonna put this right on top of this, and I've got this baking sheet under it so it'll catch all these drippings, and that's gonna help us make an awesome au jus later on. I'm gonna also put a little bit of beef stock in the bottom of this just to add a little bit of moisture underneath it. Basically, all the drippings are gonna fall into that beef stock, and it's just gonna render down and start collecting all that flavor. All right. Got a roast on there. Add just a little bit of beef stock to the bottom, like I said. And it won't hurt, so we're gonna add some of this leftover rosemary salt to that as well. Let's put this in the oven. We'll check on it in about an hour. All right, we got the prime rib in the oven. It's been there about 2 hours. We've got a ways to go on that. Now we're gonna work on this horseradish cream sauce. If I'm having prime rib, I'm having 2 things. I'm having a good beef au jus, which is just a little dipping sauce that comes from the drippings of the beef, and we're gonna have some horseradish. I love horseradish with beef, and it goes best with prime rib, so this is really simple. We're just gonna have equal parts mayo and sour cream. Now we're gonna add a few big spoonfuls of this prepared horseradish. Let's add some salt and pepper. Gonna add a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. Worcestershire. Worcestershire. Worcester. I'm just gonna say it how it's spelled. Worcestershire sauce. Worcestershire sauce. A lot of the times I'll try to match the flavor profile of the main dish to go with some of the sides. So like for instance, what we'll do here is we'll add a little bit of rosemary and garlic because number one, it goes great in this sauce, but number two, it'll kind of complement the prime ribs flavor profile. So we just got some rosemary, give it a quick chop. Add that to it. Now we're gonna take 2 cloves of garlic. It's been a day. 2 cloves of garlic. All right, now we've got all this together. Let's give it a good mix. And that's horseradish cream sauce. So we got into a little bit of a crunch for time, and I didn't get to record us taking this out of the oven. In all, it cooked about 4 hours in the oven at 275. We used a thermometer to check the internal temperature, and we pulled it off at 125 degrees. So just pull it off a few degrees before it gets to your target temperature, and it'll finish off whenever you're searing it. We also let it rest for about 30 minutes while we went to my parents' house. Got this big green egg fired up. When you have temperatures this hot, it's easy to burn yourself, so be very careful. Once again, you need to let it rest for a little bit. We let it rest for about 20 more minutes, then I sliced into it. And you see how juicy this is. Letting it rest is a key to that. Be sure to let it rest. Don't skip that step. From there, we're just gonna slice this up. It's really important to know how many you need to cut so you know how thick you can cut them. So we're not actually cutting our steaks this thin. I'm also gonna do a prime rib sandwich video, and I'm showing you this now because it's a lot easier to trim up something this thin whenever you have a big chunk like this. If you had one individual steak, it'd be really hard to slice it that thin from there. And whenever you are cooking for a crowd like this, you may have some people who've never had prime rib. I say all that to say that it can be somewhat off-putting for people who've never seen it. A lot of people like to comment on our TikToks and tell us how raw this is because it's not cooked or anything like that, when in reality this is perfectly medium rare. The inside of this piece of meat doesn't see any kind of direct heat at all, so it has no way of getting color. That's why you have this awesome pink color throughout the middle of this. And the last thing is, a lot of people see all this juice because it's such a big piece of meat and think that that's blood. Kind of like my nephew here.
Is that blood?
No, myoglobin. This is not blood. This is a protein called myoglobin. If you've made it to this point, I really appreciate you watching. Please subscribe to us. It helps us out so much. Comment what you want to see us cook next, and thanks for watching.